Welcome to Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries on Tuesday the 31st of March 2020, and today we are going to be looking at the Mark of the Beast part 2. In part 1 I covered the Mark of the Beast. If you go to my YouTube channel Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries, and there you will find it. I'll put a link on this YouTube video at the end of it, and you'll see it on the screen, and you can click on that to go to part 1. But I shall do a brief summary of part 1, and also I shall read from the same scripture that I used in part 1. Now, part 1 is concerning in the future a prophecy which was given to John the Apostle on the island of Patmos concerning events that will precede the second coming of Jesus Christ, and one of those is every person on this planet, rich, small or great, will be forced to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So I shall read from Revelation chapter 13 and Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 and 18 in the King James Version. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. He that has wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And I'm just summarising what I've gone through in part 1 and explaining here that the prophecy concerning a future economic monetary system was made 2,000 years ago on the island of Patmos by John the Apostle, a disciple of Jesus Christ. And we clearly have here described a future monetary system that will be in place prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, the passage says that there is going to be a world leader who will cause everybody to receive a mark under the skin. It says under the skin in the right hand or in the forehead. And we are living in a time, the only time from the past 2,000 years, whereby that's a possibility. The question is, what will happen to those who receive the mark of the beast? Now, you must remember, if you don't receive the mark of the beast, if you don't receive this, whatever they're going to place under your skin, in your right hand or in your forehead, if you don't receive that, then you're not going to be able to function in this future economic monetary system. You're going to need to have this mark, whatever it is, which will be a global mark, in order to function. So therefore you're going to be put in the position whereby it's a dilemma. Do you feed your family? Can you still pay your mortgage? Can you still buy fuel, if we're still using fuel then, for your car or electricity? There are so many questions that will come into people's minds. Will they still be able to use the health system? Will they still be able to go to the shops? Will they still be able to, all the things that you would need, which we use today for money, to purchase things. All those things, if you don't receive this mark, you're not going to be able to function in that system. So you're going to be in one huge dilemma. Do I take this mark? Now you need to go back to part 1 to see what this is about. Or do I not take the mark? But if I take the mark, what does that mean if I take the mark? What will happen to me? In answer to the question, I'll say it again, what will happen to those who receive the mark of the beast? So if we look at scripture to see that this was prophesied 2,000 years ago, and it tells us everyone's going to need to be a part of this economic system and receive this mark, then we also look to Scripture to see what will happen to those who receive this mark. So if we turn to Revelation chapter 16 verses 1 to 2, we read King James Version again. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, Go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men who had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. So we've got a description there that those who receive this mark under the skin or in the forehead are going to be subject to receiving sores around the areas that they've received the mark. Now it says men there, but the Bible usually just describes the whole human race as men. It doesn't just mean it's only going to be men, it's also going to be women and whoever, children, because they're going to receive the mark as well. They'll start introducing it slowly into children. They've introduced it into dogs, with cats and so on. So children, probably at the point of birth when it actually comes in, will start receiving this microchip or something similar under the skin. So it clearly states that those who receive this mark will start to develop sores on the skin. Now the question is, will they be, what kind of sores will they be, and how will that be? Well, we know that dogs and cats and anybody who receives a present day microchip under the skin, because it's happening in certain workplaces and so on, then a scan is used to read that microchip. Now at present, I suppose there might not be enough radiation with the present system we've got, which could potentially cause sores, unless it's over a long period of time. But in the future, when, or fairly soon, when the 5G network comes along, this, instead of roughly 2.5 gigahertz of frequency going out and being received by whatever is going to receive these signals in order to be able to function, then there's going to be 60 gigahertz. You're looking at 30 times multiplication, or just under, of frequency being pushed out and being received. Now you might ask yourself, well, yeah, but what evidence is there of those? Is there any evidence whereby it's been demonstrated that in the lab whereby anything has developed cancerous sores? But I'll come to that in a few minutes. I just still want to talk about what the Bible says those who receive the mark will happen to them. So we've got there that sores will develop on their body. Okay. Now if we go to Revelation 14, 9 to 12, we read, And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, under the skin, the Greek means under the skin, in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascending up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. So we also hear that here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus Christ. So what we're saying here at the end there is those who believe in Jesus Christ and who accept him and don't receive this mark need to be patient and need to understand that this is what's going to happen to those who who do receive it, so don't receive it. And those who do receive it will not only develop sores in the hands and on the skin where the microchip or whatever it is that's coming upon the world to mark everybody, they will also be put under judgment, because in order to receive that mark you also have to worship the future one world leader that's coming into the world. Now that's a different topic, so I'm not going to touch that now, but there is going to be a one world. He's going to come into the world. There's going to be he's going to force everybody under the new world government to receive this mark under the skin, or they can't buy or sell. So we've got cancer, we've got sores. So we've got sores, and we've got the judgments. The wrath of God is going to be poured out upon those who receive the mark. Like I say, not because they received the mark, but because one of the qualification criteria is to worship the beast. So humanity was created to worship God. So if you worship anything other than God, then that's idolatry. And God's judgment has come into the world because also of idolatry and disobedience to God's laws. We read in Exodus that we're to worship God, not man-made gods. So this world leader will set themselves up as a god, and people will worship this world leader. Now we had this similar thing in the book of Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar. Now he created an image. You can go to Daniel and read about that. He created an image, a huge image, and basically he wanted everybody to bow down to this image, and it was an image of himself. And people that didn't worship the image, the whole edict went right across the world at the time, and those that didn't worship that image were executed. So I'm just going to now look at, is there any evidence there that these present day microchips give off radiation, or is there any evidence anywhere that there could potentially be tumours or cancers which could explain the sores we read about in the book of Revelation? Now I'll just read the Revelation chapter 16 to verse 2 just to refresh your memories. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. There is evidence to show that the microchips we use today do give off radiation, and we can read in an article here. I put the link up, or I'll put the article somewhere in the actual description. Now the article does go on to say that the George Cabot or Chabot, PhD, doesn't believe that the usage of these will cause any cancers and so on. But that's microchips with Wi-Fi, etc. in its present 2.5 gigahertz, or the low amount was being given out when this was written. And we've got to remember that 5G is coming in, which is going to pump that up to 60 gigahertz. So that could change the whole spectrum of what of this question concerning this question would change the whole answer to, well, it needs to be asked again. Would the increase of the gigahertz through the 5G cause cancerous sores to come upon those who are walking around with the microchips inside them, with the frequencies going out from these towers constantly as we're walking down the street, and it's hitting the microchip, or whatever it is that's under the skin? Could then there be sores, cancerous sores developing on people? So like I say, this article is answering answering the question, do nano-sized microchips give off radiation? If they do, what would detect it? So we read, the answer is, I'm assuming that your reference to microchips is in relation to so-called radio frequency identification RFID chips that are sometimes implanted beneath the skin of animals or people for purpose of identification and sometimes for allowing access to various locations, facilities, equipment operations and other possible restrictions, access items, areas, etc. These chips, as you infer, are also presently being made in very small dimensions, meeting nano-sized criteria, 100 nanometers. The simple answer to your question is yes, yes, these chips do emit radiation. However, the radiation is of extremely low intensity. It is emitted over a very short duration when the chip is brought close to the reader device and is very low in energy, not in the ionizing radiation category, more in the category of radio waves, hence the notation RFID. So he answers yes, they do give off radiation, and what he's talking about is when they're scanned. But we've got to bear in mind, in your home, Wi-Fi is being given off not just briefly when you're touching it, it's constant. You're constantly bombarded in your home if you've got Wi-Fi with Wi-Fi frequencies. So we then got to increase that from just a brief momentary glance of a scanner to living constantly in your home where the Wi-Fi signals, even at 2.5 gigahertz, are being pumped out. So now we've got another article which says side effects of microchip implants in humans, and this talks about other side effects that implanting a microchip might cause, and it states any foreign body present long enough has a risk of causing infection. So you could argue, well, this microchip under the skin could cause infection, and then we can look at, even if it's not cancer, we can say, well, if this is under the skin microchip and it causes infections, then what next? Sepsis. So anything which penetrates the body and is a foreign body can cause all kind, the body rejects it, etc., like say infection and so on, can cause all kinds of sores to develop on the body. Another issue with microchips is that they can move around after being inserted. So they might put it in your hand and it's moving about. Could it get lodged somewhere else? But that's another topic. But what we're looking at is sores and infections and things like what could cause sores to develop on somebody. Now we have, despite the risks of bacterial infections that can lead to abscesses or if it occurs on the fingers, then panarathym, acute inflammation of the fingers, can occur. Another doctor also noted that the implanted chips could also lead to nerve damage, especially if they are placed next to large body nerves. Like I say, I'll link this in the description so you can check them all out. There's probably hundreds more out there, you know, there'll be counterclaims and claims and so on. But we've got to look at everything, especially once we're told, in the book of Revelation, considered we're told 2,000 years ago, well before the technology was available to bring in this future economic system, and only today the potentialities of it are there for us to see the possibilities for it coming into being, and it seems like it's coming into being with all the microchips about and the implanting of the dogs. So if we read the truth of this future economic system, then surely it speaks of the truth that those who receive this mark will receive sores in their bodies. So the potential risks to health associated with the device are adverse tissue reaction, migration of implanted transponder, compromised information security, failure of implanted transponder, failure of insertion, failure of electronic scanner, electromagnetic interference. There we come back, you know, to the frequencies given out, electrical hazards, magnetic resonance imaging incompatibility, and needles stick. These are all going for quite a big spectrum of what the potential hazards are. electromagnetic interference, any electromagnetic disturbance that interrupts, obstructs or otherwise degrades or limits the effective performance of electronics and electrical equipment. It can be induced intentionally, as in some forms of electronic warfare, or intentionally as a result of spurious emissions and response intermodulation products and the like, also called EMI, US, so on and so on. Microchip implants now being offered to workers by some companies do come with risks, but not the ones you might imagine. Okay, so there are risks, and some of the ones that are presently in operation. Their removal is nearly impossible. Just ask. So once you've got this, if you want to remove it, forget it. It's in. You can't. It's not like I get the microchip and then I don't want it. Can you remove it? They say you can't remove it. Like I say, it can float around the body as well. The removal is nearly impossible. Just ask all the victims who have sought help from physicians and surgeons. Some implants are not radiopaque and their removal is quite expensive. Many physicians and surgeons do not want to intervene, sometimes because their removal could be life-threatening. Implants have been implanted in many parts of the human anatomy, including in patients' brains and necks. Okay, so there we have that. Ufologists know all too well about the sinister objectives of implantable or injectable microchips. In this article, a secret plan to inject us all with RD chips through vaccination program, control, monitor, punish. In 2016, pet chipping program in England became mandatory. Okay, so we've got that one there, and even within that article, there are other articles to click on to find out even more information. That one's called Tortured Individuals. So we'll go to the next one. Okay, so we're on to the next one I'm going to bring up it's from the Mail, Daily Mail Online. Now, I don't know whether you've ever tried to go on the online version of the Daily Mail, but it's absolutely terrible. The ads keep popping up, it drags, it's absolutely terrible. So I might just be a little bit sort of hesitant, as in when I'm trying to read it. So, you know, just be patient if you could, please. And this article was dated 2nd of April 2016. And it's titled, if the ads will stop popping up, "Don't get your small dogs microchipped. The procedure can be deadly," warns vets who urge owners to flout new law. And it gives warnings concerning getting your dogs microchipped. Dog owners should ignore new microchipping laws, as the procedure can cause serious health problems for puppies and small dogs. Okay, so can you imagine this with microchipping babies? Can you imagine if it's going to cause small problems with puppies and small dogs, it's going to cause problems with microchipping babies? It's clearly demonstrated it could also cause problems with human beings, as we discussed previously, with all the different kinds of side effects that could come about. Some people might not get them, some people might. Everybody might, if everybody's really subject to, sensitive to radiation and the increases I've said, 60 gigahertz with the 5G and the constant bombardment, the constant triangulation when you walk in the streets and you've got these microchips inside you, who knows what kind of sores are going to start developing on people. So this article, Daily Mail, senior vet Richard all puppies are far too young to be chipped at 8 weeks and says they could have serious adverse reactions when having the sterile chip inserted between the shoulder blades. New laws, and it goes on to explain that. Yeah, so there we've got a vet, and it's in the Daily Mail. You can check that. I'll put that out in the link. Let's see what else we've got. Now, I think this one is asking, can medical microchip for people may cause cancer? Okay, now this is microchips presently. This is from 2007. So can you imagine how far along we are since 2007 concerning microchips? If they're putting out warnings in 2007, and this is from NBCnews.com, and it's asking when the US Food and Drug Administration approval implanting microchips in humans, the manufacturer said it would save lives, letting doctors scan the tiny transponders to access patients' medical records almost instantly. And this is one of the advantages they'll be telling you. We'll be able to keep all your medical records on it, but they don't tell you the disadvantages, okay? First off, the first disadvantage is you're getting scanned. You're going to be getting susceptible to this, all these frequencies being pumped into you, and the more you get scanned, the more exposure you've got to it, the more likelihood of adverse effects. The FDA found reasonable assurance the device was safe, and a sub-agency called it one of 2005's top innovative technologies, but neither the company nor the regulators publicly mentioned this. A series of veteran toxicology studies dating to the mid-90s stated the chip implants had induced malignant tumours in some lab mice and rats. So therefore we've got the FDA telling people they're safe, but leaving out the other information that these induced in studies in lab mice and rats from the 1990s, stating the chip implants had induced malignant tumours in some lab mice and rats. The transponders were the cause of the tumours, said Keith Johnson, a retired toxicological pathologist, explaining in a phone interview the findings of a 1996 study he led at the Dow Chemical Co. in Midland, Michigan. Leading cancer specialists reviewed the research for the Associated Press, and while cautioning that animal test results do not necessarily apply to humans, said the findings troubled them. The findings troubled them. Some said they would not allow family members to receive implants, and all urged further research before the glass-encased transponders are widely implanted in people. Okay, so we've got there those leader cancer specialists said they wouldn't let their family take them. We've got studies demonstrating these implants, even at the present whatever rate was using then to scan them, were causing cancers in mice and rats. And this just demonstrates that they are just pushing ahead with this no matter what. They're prepared to take the consequences and use everybody as guinea pigs. But we know, it says in Revelation chapter 16, and the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sword upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. Sores upon the people who received the mark. The microchip, clearly demonstrated in this article. And I shall find another one for you now. Now this is from How Stuff Works. I'll link this as well. Can a microchip cause cancer? Okay, let's read this. As if frequency incompatibility isn't headache enough for the pet microchip industry and pet owners, studies show that microchips could cause cancer. Could cause cancer. In 2004, after investigating microchips, the Food and Drug Administration (FDA) found the process to be safe enough for use in humans and animals. However, since this is going back to the FDA again, have said it's okay. We all know what the FDA are about. So that's the American Food and Drug Agency. However, since the 1990s, studies have shown evidence that microchip cause cancerous tumours to develop in rats and mice. One study in 2001 revealed that 1% of the rats tested developed these tumours on their bodies near the... Listen to this. 1% of the rats tested developed these tumours on their bodies near the place where the microchip was implanted. Near the place. Catherine Albrecht, who found Consumer Against Supermarket Privacy Invasion and number in Caspian, wants the microchipping of humans to end. So she has been pushing these type of studies into the public eye. Her efforts succeeded when the Associated Press released a story in September 2007 indicating that manufacturers of microchips for humans dismissed or were irresponsibly unaware of studies that show microchips might lead to cancer. When the story broke, the company's shares sharply fell. So we've got those articles there, and there's going to be lots more. There's going to be some saying there isn't, but you've got the studies there. You can check them out. In the 1990s, the studies showed, based upon the present microchips we've got and the frequencies which they become subjected to or open to, then that there is evidence that they can cause all kinds of problems, not just cancers, infections which could lead to sepsis, which would develop sores on the body. So what is the answer? Well, it's simple really. If you don't want the wrath of God to be poured out on you for worshipping the beast and receiving the mark, and if you don't want cancerous sores or whatever kind of sores are going to be coming upon those who receive the microchip and worship the beast, then don't take the microchip. Don't worship the beast. Worship Jesus Christ instead. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We read in Revelation chapter 20 what will be the future for those who follow Jesus Christ. What will be the future for those who refuse to receive this mark, this microchip or whatever it's going to be, or who refuse to become part of this one world system. And I saw Revelation 20 verses 4 to 6. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So we read there that those who do not worship the image of the beast or receive his mark will reign with Jesus Christ when Jesus Christ returns. Those who receive the mark, worship the beast, are under the wrath of God, will face the wrath of God, and will face eternity separated from God. So how do we get right with God? Well, Jesus Christ, when he was on earth during his ministry, said, I am the way, the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. Jesus Christ came the first time to take the world's sin and disobedience of God's laws upon himself on that piece of wood. When he was nailed to it, when the spear went in his side, when he breathed his last and said, it is finished, he was placed in the ground, and after 3 days he rose from the dead, conquering sin and death. He took my punishment, your punishment, which was our punishment, upon himself. And all we have to do is say, I accept the work that you did for me. It's no work that I can do. I can't save myself. Jesus Christ himself said, he's come, he's a physician, he's come to save those that are sick. I've accepted I'm sick. I have accepted that I am disobedient to God's laws and I need to be made right with God, but I can't be made right with God through my own works. So I can only be made right with God through God's works. It's God's sacrifice, it's God's works that gets me right by him. And those works are the works of Jesus Christ, becoming sin, taking our place in punishment on that piece of wood, laid in the ground, rose from the dead, and we look to him and say, yeah, I accept what you've done. And he's coming back a second time. The second time he's going to come back as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Will you be right with God when he returns? Or will you worship the beast, take his mark, and face the wrath of God, which is coming upon the world? There's no doubt about it. We only have to look in the world today to see what is happening in the world. There's a global one world government coming in which Satan, the fallen angel Lucifer, will be in control of. He will be controlling the world like he's controlled the kingdoms since the Garden of Eden. He tried to tempt Jesus Christ. He tried to offer Jesus Christ the kingdoms of the world. Jesus said, "What, are you real? I know the end from the beginning. I know all things. I know my foot is going to bruise my heel is going to bruise your head. My heel might be bruised, but I'm going to crush you. And at the end, you're going to be thrown into the pit, from whereby there'll be no escape." So get right with Jesus Christ. Read his word. So this is Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministries. Like I say, if you go onto my YouTube channel, you can see the links to the other parts of this Mark of the Beast series, if you like. And I hope you have a good day. Goodbye for now.